Checking audio, Shireen.
Ready? Okay. Got it. Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to call to order today's meeting of the State of Nevada, Nevada Commission on Homeland Security. If I could ask staff to take the roll, please.
Hello, Governor. This is Shireen Whipple. Governor Steve Sisolak,
Here.
Sheriff Joe Lombardo, Lieutenant Governor Burkhead, Sheriff Balaam, Colonel Brett Constant. I see you there, Brett.
Colonel Compton, you're muted.
Present.
Thank
There you go.
Spencer Evans,
Present.
Todd Pizzalo,
Present.
Mitch Fox,
Here.
Dr. Khan,
Present.
Charles Moore,
Chief Moore here.
Akeem Patel,
Present.
Richard Perkins,
Here.
Harriet Parker,
Present.
John Steinbeck, Rosemary Vasiliadis. Patricia Wade.
Present. Present.
Thank you, Patricia. Bill Welch.
Here.
Karen Burke. Gonzalo Cordova. Chris Betson.
Here.
David Fogerson.
Present.
And for the record, Samantha Laddick. I see Samantha. Governor, you have quorum.
Thank you. If anyone else, any of the other members, well, I guess I can't say let me know because you're not here to say let me know when you get here. So we'll check in later. I'll move on to item number 2, public comment. This is the first time set aside for public comment. Anyone wishing to address the board on any item on today's agenda, items that are on the agenda, please step forward, identify yourself for the record, and comments to be limited to 3 minutes. Do we have any public comment?
Yes, we do, Governor, here at Carson City.
Governor Dave Fogerson, Division of Emergency Management. An item we weren't able to put on the agenda because it came up too quickly for us at the finalization of the agenda. I do want to raise that we did have some concerns brought forth to the division and to the Department of Public and Behavioral Health regarding healthcare staffing shortages and healthcare facility available beds given the pediatric RSV and seasonal flu. Last week, this impacts the emergency management Homeland Security enterprise because if you have a multi-casualty incident, whether we have bed space or not. So last week, we had a great meeting between the Nevada Hospital Association, Public Behavioral Health, the Governor's Office, Clark County, Washington County, and DEM to work through the problem on the issues. And we found some paths forward to assist with staffing issues that are allowed by the facilities through working with the Department of Public and Behavioral Health. We also worked out some programs so that they work with the nursing board. That facilities indicated a new nursing license is needed for an employee that they've hired. And that employee or that nursing license now gets immediately processed. And should they meet all the applicant requirements, it gets immediately issued a temporary license. So it's kind of nice. And within a week, we're able to address a fairly significant concern, gather all the partners together, have a discussion about what to do and move that forward to the better of the enterprise. Into public comment, sir.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak during public comment? Seeing and hearing no one, I'll close item number 2. Move on to item number 3, approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So move, Dr. Khan, for the record.
Dr. Khan moves approval of the minutes. Is there any discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I noticed that she came up on my screen. Lieutenant Governor Burkhead is here. If we could mark her present.
Thank you.
Item number 4, report on the statewide adoption of the National Incident Management System. Chief Fogerson.
Thank you, Governor. Chief Fogerson for the record, Dave Fogerson, Division of Emergency Management. I did send out a late memo to commission members immediately before this meeting because I realized that we did have more items than what we normally talk about in this agenda item. The normal item we talk about is just the training incident management system, and we continue that statewide with great progress. We have conducted an after action review from the COVID incident, which has supplied some additional thoughts that we're going to start working on with these incident management team trainings and just-in-time trainings, trying to make sure that we improve that whole enterprise concept of that. Active assailant training is continuing statewide in conjunction with the grant BPS received through the division. We had a hurdle in some class in Southern Nevada where the contractor, the TEEX from Texas Engineering University, wasn't allowing our hotel resort security employees to attend. We worked through that problem and now they're able to attend as well. So those classes are continuing statewide. We're also working on memorandums of understanding with EPS and NDF in their roles as emergency support function partners within the Nevada Operations Center. Hopefully having those short up here within the next couple months to make sure everybody understands expectations and managing those expectations on both sides. And the biggest news I got is the Ely Shoshone tribe advised late last week they desire to become part of the interstate mutual aid program provided under NRS 414A. Under this plan, all state and public entities are opted into the mutual aid system but tribal nations have to opt in by tribal resolution. And so now Ely Shoshone tribe joins the Reno Sparks Indian Colony, Las Vegas Paiute tribe, the Urington Paiute tribe, the Pyramid Lake tribe, and the Washoe tribe in California, Nevada as partners with us on the Interstate Mutual Aid Plan. This is a fantastic way where we share resources back and forth between all our jurisdictions, whether it's a general improvement district, a school district, a city, or county, or the state, or now these tribal nations when people are in need. And it provides for protection from liabilities, and it also provides a reimbursement mechanism for us to be able to use so everyone understands what they're getting into when they offer help. And finally, we are working with council to see if there's a way forward for the Nevada National Security Site to also join that interstate mutual aid program. They occupy a fairly significant portion of the state of Nevada down in the south. They have a federal entity that oversees a private contractor, and that's what we're trying to figure out how we would help them become mutual aid providers with us. They do have mutual aid direct agreements with those counties that they border, and they provide emergency medical services to the Highway 95 for us. So we're looking to see if we can expand that a little more to get their fire, emergency medical services, technical rescue, and hazardous material needs that both mutual aid to them and mutual aid from them. End of report. Any questions, sir?
Do we have any questions from the board members regarding the report on the National Incident Management NIMS program? Okay, move on to item number 5, grant status report for fiscal year 2017-2022.
Hi, Suze Coyote for the record with the Division of Emergency Management. The grant status report should be attached in the meeting materials. All grants programs with open subawards are listed in the report. It shows the subrecipient agency, project, original award amount, reobligated funds received, amount spent as of the last report, the funding stream or grant, any deobligated amount, and the percentage of the award spent as of the last report received. The FY22 Homeland Security Grant Program grants were issued October 19th. The fiscal year 21 EPWG Emergency Preparedness Working Group grants were issued October 21st. The FY22 Nonprofit Security Grant Program grants were issued October 25th. The FY22 Emergency Management Performance Grants were issued October 25th. And the DEM submitted the application for the state and local cybersecurity grant program, which was due November 15th. The FY22 EPWG Emergency Preparedness Working Group, thank you, grant application will be released shortly. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have regarding this report.
Do we have any questions regarding from the board members regarding the grant status report?
Governor, this is Bill Welch. I have a couple questions if I'm allowed.
Go ahead, Member Welch.
Thank you. Suze, I
Yes.
noticed I used to serve on the finance committee for the Homeland Security a number of years ago, and I remember that there was a time frame that monies had to be expended or returned back to the federal government. And so the first question, and I have 2 or 3, but the first question would be, are we at risk of losing any of the monies that have been unspent for 2017-18 fiscal years?
Here, I'm going to answer that question. Suze Coyote for the record. I'm going to answer that question to the best of my ability. The reobligation and deobligation process that we mentioned here is our attempt to prevent the deobligation of funds, which is handled, I believe, through this working group, the Homeland Security Working Group. So we do our level best to prevent any deobligation of funds in any of our grants.
Thank you, Ms. Coyote. The second question that I had, I think you answered 2 questions with your last answer, but I did have one other question. So I see a number of the grants are 79%, 88%, 99%, and in all respect, they have nominal amounts left. So it appears that their projects have been completed or mostly completed. And I'm wondering if it would make sense to sweep those funds and reallocate them to other programs that might be in need of additional funding. And that would be my last question, Governor. Thank you.
Go ahead, Suze.
Okay, once again, Suze Coyote for the record. So the funding streams are established when we apply. The funding streams are what they are. So like Homeland Security grants are within those funds, and in there discreetly, the UASI funds versus the state Homeland Security Program funds. Those are separate funding streams, and we can't really move things around from, say, EMPG, the Emergency Management Performance Grant, to Homeland Security grants. We do our best to reobligate funds before the end of the period, where we monitor that to ensure that that doesn't happen, if at all possible. And that report that you're looking at is the end of, I think it's 6/30, June 30th, which is the end of the state fiscal year. And there's another round of reports that happen 9/30 before the closeout of those grants. So there's another tranche of reporting and progress reporting that's not showing up on that report, just by virtue of timing. So when that report is updated again, you'll see more progress on those things and those being closed out or deobligated and reobligated.
Thank you. I do understand that you can't cross over the different funding grant sources, but within each of the individual funding sources. But I just wanted to make sure that we didn't put any of those monies at risk, and it looked like a number of them were completed. So I'll look forward to seeing the next report. And it sounds like you're doing everything in your power to ensure that we're maximizing the use of the funds. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Do we have any further questions on the grant status report?
Governor Dave Fulkerson.
Go ahead, Chief.
If I can just add on a little bit more what Susan's talking about in response to Mr. Welch's question. Billy Samuels, as the urban area administrator, myself as state administrative agent, we're constantly looking at these numbers and working with our grant staff to ensure that we're not going to send money back to the feds. We do a deobligation, reobligation process. Anything deobligations under $100,000, there's at the ability of the state administrative agent to make that permission to do. And so we do a lot of that flip-flop in there towards the end. And then anything over $100,000, we do bring back to this board, like the last commission meeting where we talked about the robot dog for Metro. And so we're very cognizant of that fact. We don't want to send a dime back to the federal government. We want to find out somebody else with the ability to use it. One other component we have on these grants is normally you have that 3-year performance period, and then we have a year to close out of the states. So that gives us some time to redistribute that funds if we find an opportunity to. Due to COVID, they extended that period on the 17 grants. So that's why you're also seeing a longer time period on some of the grants right now. COVID really did screw up some people's ability to spend their funds.
Thank you, Chief. Any further questions or comments on the grant status report? Okay, I'll close item number 5, move on to item number 6, the audit results for the federal fiscal year 2022.
Good afternoon, Governor, committee members, guests. Jared Franco for the record. Last committee meeting, I discussed 4 different audits that DEM has recently or was currently going through by state and federal auditors. The most recent audit we went through was a federal audit of our Homeland Security Grant Program suite years, federal fiscal year 2017 to 2020. The audit was actually going on during our last committee meeting, and I was unable to share the results, but we just received the results of that audit a couple weeks ago, and it came back with no findings, and we received more praise from our federal partners about how we are managing our federal grants. One thing I would like to share specifically about the results letter we received was that our federal partner admitted to not administering education and training for our BISR thoroughly enough, like they had done in the past pre-COVID. Our federal partners were amazed and happy to see the dedication put forth by our grants team to put in the extra effort to learn and understand the tool to ensure the report was submitted timely with beneficial information. So the BISR stands for Biannual Strategy Implementation Report, and it's a report submitted to Congress by Homeland Security on our behalf. This entitles members in DC to see in times of incidents or disasters where the money is going to ensure we are preparing, mitigating, and recovering from said incident, disaster, and to help gauge if it's a sufficient amount or not. And one more item, as I'm sure you are all aware, the warehouse has been transitioned over to Nevada's purchasing agency, and everything has been handed over to purchasing, including an audit that was going on. The audit was paused during the move from the northern to southern warehouse and is starting to ramp back up again. We will be assisting purchasing with the audit in any way we can, while ensuring they stay the lead and in control. And with that, it's in the report if there's any questions.
Thank you very much, Jared. Do we have any questions on the audit results report? Okay, moving on to item number 7, update on the status of cybersecurity task force, Mr. Tim Robb.
Thank you very much, Governor and members of the commission. I'm Tim Robb, the chairman of the cybersecurity task force for the record. As of last week, we have had the opportunity to hold 2 of our meetings of the task force. Both have gone very well. And just a reminder, the reason for the task force and establishing it is to ensure eligibility for federal funding, both current opportunities and any future ones that may be coming from the federal government. This body is stood up to ensure that the statewide funding priorities are established by a holistic approach that includes as many engaged groups as possible, both public and private, local, state government, all of the parties that we can get to the table to get a good understanding of the cybersecurity needs of the state. And then also the Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security is going to serve as the state administrative agent as they do a lot of this type of funding. They do a great job. So I'm glad that they are willing to take on this additional program to ensure that this money can get to where it needs to be. And as of last week, we were able to get approved our strategic plan, which was a requirement of the current grant. And that will be going to the Department of Homeland Security for approval. And once we have approval of that strategic plan, we'll be able to move forward with the notice of funding that the entities can apply to, and then will be reviewed by that task force as well. So I think that that's the quick update. Pending any questions, I'm happy to answer any that you may have.
Thank you, Tim. Do we have any questions for Tim regarding the cybersecurity task force? Anybody? Nope. Okay, thank you very much. We'll close out item number 7. Move on to item number 8, Emergency Management, Homeland Security, New Year's Eve mission.
Governor, commission members, Dave Fogers from the record. Just want to update the commission on what the division is doing for New Year's Eve this year. We did get approval from the interim finance committee to use contingency funds in order to support our state and local partners during New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve is a very special event for the state, just because of how diverse it happens, not only in Clark County, but also in some of our rural communities, such as Douglas County, Washington County, or in Elko and Jackpot. And so we've deployed the Guard as force multipliers at Clark County. These force multipliers will exist for law enforcement and for the healthcare system in both roles. The EM staff is going to be located within the Clark County Multi-Agency Coordination Center and within Metro's area commands. That way they can provide feedback back to the state should something occur and they need additional assistance. DM staff and our emergency support functions such as NDOT, DPS, NDF, all of the various state agencies that serve that role for the state will be available virtually that night and be able to staff the Nevada Operations Center if required. And the Guard has additional staff on notice in the event that we do need to provide assistance in either in either northern Nevada or eastern Nevada while we're still deployed in the south. So I want to make sure we provide protection for the entire state should anything happen, and the Guard's a great use of that force multiplier agent for that purpose. Any report, any questions, sir?
Very good. Do we have any questions regarding the Emergency Management, Homeland Security, New Year's Eve mission? Any board members have any questions?
Governor Richard Perkins here.
Go ahead.
Yes, Governor. It'd be interesting to know, I think, if there's any data, information, or intelligence that's been that has arisen that can be shared with the commission relative to the mission so that we could perhaps have any additional input into the resources that might be necessary to carry it out.
Do we have any information that can be shared with the entire commission?
Let me check with legal counsel and see about that, sir. And let me check with the Southern Nevada Counterterrorism Center and the Nevada Threat Analysis Center. Right now, we don't have any actual intelligence that anything will occur on New Year's Eve, but our partners down there, the whole reason for that, especially the Southern Nevada deployment, is there's insufficient personnel in Southern Nevada to staff not only for the night of New Year's, but should something occur the additional days following the event. And so the Guard is able to serve as those force multipliers instead of having to move law enforcement personnel from north to south, in agencies that are also stretched thin. And so that's the request based upon what Clark County's asked for. And it's really been narrowed in scope. If you recall, after 9/11 and through the years, the mission used to include staff in the airports. Now the mission really is to help secure the Strip, and Guard members are attached with Metro officers, so they can put a decreased number of Metro officers there around the Strip locations and have the Guard provide the majority of the security to secure that facility. And we put Guard members at 2 of the hospitals down there in order to provide triaging ability should we have a mass casualty incident, multi-casualty incident, in order to support that. So those are the 2 big roles that the Guard's playing down there. Billy Samuel's online if he wants to add anything more to that. As the Clark County Emergency Manager, but he's really narrowed. Him and Rachel Skidmore from Metro really sharpened their pencil on their ask through the years, and their ask I think is pretty spot on to the knowledge of what we think might exist and the knowledge of the resources that are available for Southern Nevada to handle that address. I don't know if that answers enough of your questions, Mr. Perkins, in the public meeting, or if you got further than that, or Daniel's got something for us too.
I think that answers those questions. I mean, I also recognize that if there was some intelligence, it's not something to be shared in a public meeting. And just having a lifetime ago participated in the Fusion Center discussions, I wanted to make sure that the commission was providing as much support for that mission as is necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. Thank you, everybody. Any further questions on the New Year's Eve mission? Okay, moving on to item number 10, election integrity in the state of Nevada. Mark?
Good afternoon, Governor. Mark Voloshin, Deputy Secretary of State for Elections, for the record. I'll be presenting on agenda item 9 along with John. John, do you want to start or shall I take the ball first?
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, this is John Backett. I'll go ahead and go first and just give a quick overbrief of what DEM did to support the Secretary of State's office. So over a year ago, the DEM leadership engaged with the Secretary of State's office to have high-level discussions and be briefed on what DEM could do to support their office. Shortly after that, the Secretary of State's office, specifically Mark, came over and briefed us to a limited number of staff that works for DEM as well as our emergency support functions on the current status of the election integrity and security. And then from there, DEM personnel attended the U.S. Department of Homeland Security secret briefings that were held inside of our building for those that had the clearance, along with Mark and his staff and the Department of Public Safety personnel that were able to attend those. Excuse me, DEM conducted several small drills in our operations center over the next couple months, preparing for any type of event that we would be able to support the Secretary of State's office moving forward. Finally, we were able to get together as a group and we conducted 3 small tabletop exercises inside of the National Guard's Joint Operations Center on our campus that had our National Guard partners and our law enforcement personnel, along with the analysts around the state, discuss 3 different scenarios: an active assailant in rural Nevada, a bomb threat in urban Nevada, and then a loss of power anywhere regionally in the state that could potentially affect election processes. After that, we did sit down and discuss how the exercise went. We're in the process of currently drafting an after action report, so we can continue to use this information and build off the processes that we have already put in place with our training and exercise schedule that's built out through 2024 in support of the presidential election. Mark, go ahead.
Mark Voloshin, Deputy Secretary of State for Elections, for the record. In addition to what John just mentioned, looking to the last election cycle, we are also thinking pretty extensively about the way forward. And there's some common themes, frankly, that I'd like to address up front, just for everyone's awareness. First of all, we have made sure that going forward, we're going to make sure that the counties and at the state level, we're addressing both passive and active measures when it comes to security practices across the board. It can't simply be a silver bullet of a new lock or a new door or even a new procedure. It's got to be a holistic approach as well. Second, our partnerships are key. Secretary of State's office has some extremely good and strong relationships with state and federal partners, including many of the individuals on this call today. And we're looking to continue and reinforce those relationships going forward. And then lastly, and along those lines, we are also going to address the fact that there are significant changes in personnel at the state and county level. By February, only 7 of our 17 county election officials will have been here as far back as the 2020 election cycle. So that change in personalities is also going to require just addressing moving forward as we think about the increase in our security posture. And to that end, there are really 3 focus areas that we're considering. First of all, the physical security, and to this end, we're going to leverage our partnership with CISA, specifically their protective security advisor, who's already made good inroads over the past 2 years, visiting the counties, identifying and providing some ideas for what they can be improving, with the idea being that over the next 2 years, and really certainly before the presidential election cycle, we're going to conduct that holistic review of the state and the county level to make sure that from a physical security standpoint, that we're reinforcing the good while also identifying areas that need improvement so that we can continue to work through those. On the cyber side, this is certainly one of the more concerning areas, because of simply the scope. It could be, again, a bored teenager somewhere in Montana, all the way up to a state-supported cyber terrorist overseas that can threaten to disrupt or otherwise influence our electoral process. I do want to be clear that this is not a concern because of any impact from our machines. Our voting machines are, of course, not connected to the internet, which I find an opportunity to say and reiterate as frequently as possible. But there are aspects that would certainly deter or cause issues. Everything from interrupting the transmission of results, possible modifications to voter rolls, results pages, and websites, and other public-facing issues that would alter public perception of the integrity of the election. Again, this is another area where CISA is going to, we're going to lean heavily on CISA as well as the other partnerships we have here at the state, with the idea being that, again, reinforcing what is good and identifying areas to improve. And then lastly, training and education. Again, we're going to have a lot of new clerks and registrars across the state, new staff members here at the Office of the Secretary of State as well. And just simply acknowledging that we have new folks here and we need to bring them up to speed onto the many steps that we have to take to ensure both the physical and cybersecurity as we look to the presidential election cycle, which again is approaching extremely quick. Candidate filing for the presidential preference primaries starts in less than a year on October 2nd, of course. So that being said, the clock's ticking and we already have a plan in place. That also, to a great extent, involves members of this call, including the Department of Emergency Management. Pending questions, so that's all I have.
Do we have any questions from the board regarding election integrity and this report? Anybody? Okay. Seeing and hearing none. Thank you very much for the presentation. I'll move on. Do we have any other board members that have come since we took the roll call?
Yes, sir. This is Gonzalo Cordova from Department of Homeland Security, Cybersecurity, and Infrastructure Security Agency.
Okay. Could we please mark Member Cordova present?
Yes.
Anyone else? Okay. This is the second time then set aside for public comment. Anyone wishing to address the board on any item under our jurisdiction, please step forward, identify yourself for the record, and comments will be limited to 3 minutes. I wanted to lead off with thanking all of you board members. This will be my last Commission on Homeland Security meeting. Thank you for participating. You've clearly made valuable contributions and made our state better and safer as a result of that. So I will be watching from afar and thank you for your participation. Do we have any other public comment? Okay, hearing and seeing none, we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.